Hello, everybody. I just kind of wanted to go over a concept I've been thinking about related to capitalism and money and kind of how the economy is put together a little bit. So, I've been trying to figure out what's up with capitalism and why it doesn't feel like the right thing, the right system, but it also makes sense in a lot of ways. So I've been trying to break that down in my head, and today I think I got a decent distance into that. So I wanted to break it down for you. Maybe it can help someone out. So let's go back. Let's think about why we have something like, why we put value on precious metals and gemstones. And because precious metals and gemstones have been considered valuable for quite a long time. And so you break that down into the idea that something has value because it's aesthetic, and it provides it provides a certain aesthetic, and so it's desirable, and so then it is valuable because it's desirable, and so then eventually that can turn into gold is valuable. At some point it kind of sinks in maybe that gold is valuable, silver is valuable, and so you can turn that into a coin and it holds that same value. Somehow you're able to say to someone, I give you this coin and you give me this much food in exchange, and then you can take that coin and go get something else with it. And so you have an exchange system based on sort of an intermediary, but that intermediary is your currency, your coin, and it represents a lot of different stuff. Instead of a goat for 10 potatoes, you can get a goat and 5 potatoes for 2 coins. And so and then you have, so you're getting into, I believe this is called representational currency, where it's not a physical thing that's technically worth anything. And then, of course, deeper down that rabbit hole is like paper money, or where it's that money doesn't even represent a physical object per se. It represents like a piece of gold or silver, but it is not in and of itself worth anything. It's not even worth the value of precious metals. It just represents the value of that precious metal. But you're not going to give it to someone and be like, here, make a ring out of this, because doesn't have any actual value. You couldn't turn it into something else. So now we have some currency. Now we have something that can be accumulated and stored that otherwise couldn't, because when you don't have a currency, you can store wealth in precious metals, and that's probably part of the reason why they were considered valuable, is because food goes bad and stuff. So you have wealth in food, but that's like temporary wealth because it only lasts as long as the food lasts, and then you're out of luck. And the precious metals last for hundreds or thousands of years before they start to degrade or tarnish. And of course iron would be valuable because you can turn it into weapons. But anyways, so now you have something that you can collect, and it's something that more or less everyone can agree has a certain level of value to it. So you have this thing that is a conscious collective idea that is agreed upon, can be collected, and sort of like a game, if you become better at collecting this thing, you could probably find new ways to make more of it faster. Once you have more of it, you can go find, let's say you could purchase a farm from someone, and maybe hire them to work on your farm, so they get a wage, but you have an entire farm now. And it's if you go buy a bunch of farms, then you just collect the income from the sales of that farm every year. So now you're sort of getting into capitalism, and it's pretty easy to get there once you have like a currency system that is based on a thing that doesn't like rot or mold and can stick around and be stored long term. Now, let's assume that there's a guy, and okay, no, actually that has to come later. But okay, so now we've gotten to the idea of sort of capitalism where, well, okay, sorry, not capitalism, but of like accumulative wealth, and generational wealth can come from this as well. And then we move into, let's say we move into capitalism where anyone is afforded this opportunity. Anyone who can make money is allowed to make money. If you can think of an idea to make money, no one is going to stop you. So that's a freedom thing, and it's hard to disagree with that idea, because what is the alternative? Being like, no, you can't make money. Like, no, that's not good. That's not better. It's good to allow people who can make money to make money, because then you get people who do genuinely pull themselves up out of worse situations, and they might only pull themselves up into middle class, but middle class is probably the best place to be, and so they're better off than they were financially, and they're able to provide more for the people in their life, and so it's a good thing. So now we have the kind of the concept of maybe how capitalism came to be. Obviously there's no facts here, but I'm just kind of running a thought experiment of what the thought experiment that helped me kind of start to wrap my head around this idea. And so, okay, we get to this point, and okay, let's say in this thought experiment, there's no banks at the moment. Well, where are the rich people going to put all their money? So they would probably come up with a vault system. They would commission someone to create a safe area, like a bunker or a vault of some sort, and they would store their doubloons in there, their money in there. And then if you had a particularly savvy rich person, then if they saw someone who was poor and in need, they would go to them and be like, hey, I'll give you some of my money to help you get out of your poverty, but then, once you pay me back, I need compensation, because I'm giving you, because if you think of money as if you think of money as a thing, like anything else, if you sell someone a potato, I use potatoes a lot in my analogy, and it really helped me. So if you sell someone a potato, then you expect something in return, whatever that is, a chicken or some cash. Now, in the situation of a loan, you are selling someone money, and the money is the thing, the material good. Sorry, that's the word I was looking for. It's a good. In this case, the money is a good. So you're not giving someone money per se, you're giving someone a good, which happens to be money. And then that really helped me break the concept of a loan a little bit, because I was always afraid of loans, because I'm like, why would I pay money for money? But if money is a good that I'm paying for, but in order to pay for it, there has to be some way of paying for money, which is a strange concept. And so hence you have interest. So now this particularly savvy rich person has started a little bank, and they have started giving out loans to poor people. So okay, so far this makes sense. It makes sense that system came up. It makes sense that some people were able to somehow accumulate more wealth, and that wealth allowed them to continue to accumulate wealth more quickly. So all of that makes sense so far inside of this little encapsulated analogy that we've come up with. And so, okay, so if that makes sense inside this enclosed system, but it's also kind of true in the real world, then okay, it's not so crazy to think that like, oh, it is annoying, but whatever, it makes sense. At least it makes sense. So, okay, what's the next step? Okay, well, the real question at the heart of this that made me, at least me, start thinking about it was, what's actually wrong with capitalism? Because there's something wrong with it, but socialism is not the answer, because it's not fair to assume everyone deserves an equal thing. Some people work harder than other people, and that's just a fact. And working harder, you deserve. Now, it's not always true. You know, you have a farm, and maybe the harder working, better farmer, his crop is less than the lazy farmer for whatever reason. So it's not fair. But in general, it doesn't mean that the lazy farmer deserves more. It just means he has more. But the hardworking farmer technically deserves more. So, okay, so socialism, I think that was pretty reductive, but socialism, not with it. Don't love it. So, because I do agree with capitalism. It makes sense because it can afford people opportunity. But we have to be careful with it. So what's wrong with it then? So the thing we have to be careful with is complete complete basically manipulation of the system. So you get monopolies, and it's like, well, okay, the problem really is that, okay, people are poor and they need money, they need to live their lives. And so you end up with rich people who can buy other people, because you can easily buy poor people because they just they want to provide for their family, or they want to go get like dinner that night or a jet ski or whatever, something simple. And then you have rich people buying other rich people just because of greed, right? You're like, I have $10 million, but this person's offering me $2 more million, and all I have to do is not talk about this one thing. Sounds good to me, right? And it's like, yeah, easy money. And so you get people being able to be purchased, sometimes for understandable reasons, like trying to provide for your family, and sometimes just for selfish reasons. And so it's like, okay, so there's power there. There's power with money. That's a big flaw. If there was no power with money, if people were like, money's a thing and that's great, but I don't take free money. Like, nobody can tell me what to do just because they're rich. Like, if that was a fact, then capitalism would be less powerful, I think, which is part of the issue. Now, the other issue is I was trying to figure out, okay, one of the problems is the idea of infinite growth, and the sort of the fact that, as we've seen recently, people can accumulate wealth to, like, they can just accumulate wealth as much as possible. There's no limit or cap. So if we were able to put some sort of cap on it, then okay, so positive, quickly, this is on track. So a positive feedback loop is when something goes into a system and it tells that system, okay, increase production. You get these inside the body, the human body. That's how I know about them. But anyways, increase production, and then that increased production loops back and kicks back to the sensors that say either increase or decrease production. But with the positive feedback, you get the continued increase of production of whatever. A lot of times that's how stress can work. And so you get a positive feedback loop of income, financial income, where you have more money so you can make more money, so you have more money so you can make more money. And if we were able to make this so that at some point there was a cap, there was a ceiling, where it becomes a negative feedback loop, where you have more money and you lose more money, and you have more money and you lose more money. And if you try and get above this ceiling, you keep losing that equivalent amount of money. And that could be with taxes. That's the only one that came to mind at first, but I quickly looked up some ideas, and someone else said something about the fact that CEOs and stuff, they don't just make a lot of money for their company, but they personally make a lot of money, and that incentivizes them to make more money for their company. And so what we could do there is, okay, you cap CEO income so that the excess income that they might get could go to either taxes, non-for-profit. It could go to... Now, the problem with non-for-profit is they might just make their own non-for-profits and then somehow turn that into basically a money laundering scheme. So there's flaws there, but and then the best one that I like the idea of is, if they have excess money, they have to trickle that down into their workers' salaries until they are equivalent to their top paid, like 1,000 workers or 100 workers, or their top I don't know. I haven't worked out the whole system, but basically, like, so let's say they make $1 million a year and their top paid worker makes $100,000 a year. They have to trickle down their excess. I haven't worked out the math, because it's not that they would trickle down the 900,000. They could, well, let's keep it simple. They trickle down that excess 900,000. This is mandatory. They trickle down that excess 900,000 back into their employees, or into their company in an employee-focused way. So upgrading lunchrooms, free meals, perhaps purchasing vehicles for people who don't have the finances to get their own vehicle, or once a year they have to purchase a house or build a house for one of their employees, things of this sort, where it's like purely like their excess money has to roll back into their employees. And that could be one way to make the excess either work for the rest of the world, or roll it back into the economy, or just like keep them a little more humble. So yeah, anyways, I'm going to keep thinking about this, but that really helped me wrap my brain a little better around capitalism and maybe how it's good, how it's bad, and kind of maybe where it grew from. Anyways, so I hope someone enjoyed this, and thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.